active. Their progress had not been griefed yet, so it would be easy for someone else to continue. Bujat knew if a full reconstruction project was going to work, it had to be done in secret, with a large amount of players working together, and they would have to work fast to prevent it from being discovered by travelers on the highway. He made it his mission to unite the 5 Russian groups together so that they could do the impossible: restore the Valley of Wheat. Due to his status as a YouTuber, he was able to get negotiations started between the groups, and anyone that was unwilling to cooperate on this new secret project was promptly removed. The first few days of the reconstruction project were rough, with some hostilities still being present. Anyone that was caught stealing, griefing, or killing other members were kicked out. But once everyone was on the same page, progress could really start coming along. It was decided early on that they would not be creating an exact replica of the original Valley, but rather a newer version of it with some design changes, allowing for more creative freedom. All members were given specific tasks such as removing lava casts, planting new crops, negotiating with other players for obsidian, and constructing the actual buildings. Unlike the original Valley of Wheat, which had no real grief protection, many of the new buildings would have obsidian frames, which would make them more resistant to TNT and other forms of griefing. Even the farmland would have obsidian underneath to reinforce it, and to prevent giant holes from being made into the caverns below. Different block choices such as quartz were used for different pyramids, giving it a slightly different feel from the original. The Russian 2b2t player base had never come together like this before, and they all quickly realized that it was the largest collaborative Russian project in the server's history. They knew they had to commemorate it with a unique build that would act as a symbol of their unification, something that had not been present at the original Valley. It was decided that a large obsidian pyramid would be constructed and then covered with sand to make it thematically consistent with the rest of the base. A massive lava cast had to be removed with TNT just to make room for it. Almost all of their remaining obsidian went into the pyramid, and the Russians continued working around the clock for hours and hours. Once all obsidian was in place and the sand was added on top, it blended in perfectly with the rest of the valley. They formally connected it with the Eastern Highway and repaired many of the other roadways. The reconstruction was still secret enough that there were no major griefing attempts on it, but the Russians knew that once they finished the project and announced it, griefers would come swarming in, and the valley's famous cycle of destruction would continue. So they enjoyed the restored oasis while they could. For the first time in almost 5 years, it was starting to look like it once did back in the old days. There were still sections that contained large lava casts, but removing them wouldn't really matter, as griefers would just replace them anyway. By the end of April, as they ran out of obsidian, they felt they had rebuilt enough of the valley to finally go public, and on May 1st, 2021, they announced their reconstruction project to the entire community. They welcomed everyone to come see the valley and decide for themselves whether they would continue the restoration or destroy it. They left it up to the greater community. Now, considering this is an anarchy server, I think you know what happened next. Griefers made a mad dash to the valley to begin destroying it. After a few hours, it had taken considerable damage, but thanks to smart planning, the obsidian frames helped much of the base to survive the initial griefing attempts. But in the days after, as news of the reconstruction became more widespread, the griefing continued. The Luminous Sandclave, the English-speaking group that had originally started repairing the valley before going inactive, became upset that the Russians had finished their work and vowed to destroy the pyramid. But thanks to some quick negotiating, the Russians convinced them to stop, and a truce was agreed upon. It has now been almost 2 weeks since the reconstruction project went public. I decided to take a look around the valley myself on an alt account just yesterday, and while parts of the base are reverting back to their grief state, much of it is still intact. The massive pyramid is still there, the unique additions survived, and even much of the farmland is still present. I'm not gonna lie, it felt nostalgic to walk around the Valley of Wheat and actually be surrounded by wheat. Seeing these sights made me acknowledge